Allyson Hurley. Really enjoyed my time talking with Allyson. First question I ask her is, how did Cheesecake change your life? Allyson is a coach that helps people with getting healthier, with nutrition, with weightlifting, with exercise, with losing weight. What's the difference between getting healthy and having a goal of getting healthy or losing weight? But she's got a very interesting journey where as a child, she was taught by her mother only to have one slice of bread a day and kind of these, really bad self-image issues, but fascinating pivot that she's made, of course, with the cheesecake and running marathons and Sour Patch candy. Just really great insight and a great perspective and how she was able to turn herself around and get healthier and look at nutrition and exercise in a positive way, and how she helps others now. It always takes a remarkable person, I always say, to not only help themselves, but to get what they learned and try to help others. I thank Allyson for her time. Really enjoyed the conversation. And I thank you for watching and listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Interesting, Allyson Hurley. Why and how did Cheesecake put you over the edge?
Well, because I realized I was eating like 4 or 5 of them at a time, I'll be honest. And I just realized that I was doing that because I was trying to do keto, but I couldn't eat an apple. And I just had this realization of how ridiculous that was because I could eat all of these cheesecakes, but I couldn't eat an apple. And it was just, it in my mind no longer made sense ultimately.
In this fast-paced MSP landscape, how do you stay ahead? Introducing MSPinfluencer.com, your ultimate hub for MSP news, insights, and community connection powered by Forza Dash. More than 75,000 MSPs subscribe to our MSP Influencer Pulse weekly newsletter, staying informed and ahead of industry trends. Tune in to emerging podcasts from Joey Pinz and leading MSP voices, offering essential tips, powerful insights, and success stories. Explore our multi-authored blogs, crafted specifically for MSP leaders, delivering fresh perspectives and actionable strategies. Celebrate excellence with the industry-leading Forza MSP Influencer Awards, recognizing innovation, leadership, and impact in the MSP community. Join thousands of MSP professionals who trust MSPinfluencer.com to grow their business and expand their networks. MSPinfluencer.com, where today's MSP leaders connect, collaborate, and conquer, all powered by the Forza platform, helping MSP vendors work effectively with MSPs and helping MSPs grow. Here, you can have as much bacon as you want, but you can't have a pear.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
There is something off about that, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And that was in 2020, pre-COVID?
That was about 2 months after kind of thing, like COVID kind of took off. So I was at home, was working from home, which honestly, I think gave me the space to kind of quit the hustle and bustle that I was doing because I was on a pretty intense schedule that I didn't realize what I was doing to myself. I'd wake up by 6, I'd be at work by 6:30, and then I would work for a little bit, leave to go work out, shower at the gym, come back, work some more. And then I was also I've been training for a marathon the year before. So on top of marathon training, I was working out 4 to 5 days a week on top of it. So my schedule was just back to back constantly. And so when the pandemic happened, it forced me to slow down a little bit and see what I was doing to myself. And I realized I was like, I have all this brain space for creativity that I didn't realize that had existed, because I was filling it with a perception of obligations that I didn't need to have, basically.
And tell the journey of a marathon, because you got talked into it because you figured you could even lose more weight.
Yeah, so when I started running, I was running half marathons, and I had lost a ton of weight initially.
Yeah.
I was the lowest I'd ever been in terms of weight, and I gained it also back very, very quickly. And I always say too that losing weight was the worst thing that ever happened to me, because I got down to my lowest weight, and what ended up happening after that is I spent 5 to 6 years trying to get back to that, and I never could. So the marathon for me was like, well, if I can't do it with a half marathon, maybe I can do it with a marathon. And I couldn't. Shocker. People don't run marathons to typically lose weight because you have to fuel your body properly. But I was significantly under eating during that time too. And it wasn't a great headspace to be in while I was training for that.
Is it more important to lose weight or to be healthy?
Oh, be healthy. Yes. And I think a lot of people kind of get tunnel vision because they just want to lose weight. And so what that ends up creating is you only look at the scale. You don't look at any of the behaviors that you're doing. You don't look at any of the other positive things that are happening when you start to implement healthy behaviors. And what that does is kind of create this attitude of, if I'm not seeing the response from the scale that I'm looking for, screw it, right? I'm just going to go back to what I was doing because I'm not kind of getting what I want. So yeah, it's helping people get out of that tunnel vision and looking at what real healthy behaviors are.
Let's first get healthy, and then when you get healthy, you just naturally lose weight.
Correct. And that's something that's not a lot of people think about, right?
Yeah.
Is losing weight loss is the outcome to behaviors. And a lot of times what we are constantly looking at is the outcome and not the behaviors that get us there. Whereas if you focus on more behavior-based goals, the things that are in your control, you're more likely to stay motivated, have ambition to do those things because you're doing something you actually have control over. And the scale isn't something I think we all know we don't have really control over what our body does when it comes to that. So
what started you on this journey to health, Allyson? I mean, did you get to a certain weight? Was there a kind of come to Jesus moment?
The cheesecake was my come to Jesus moment.
Was it really?
Yeah, I just had
But you were already running marathons at that point, right?
Yes. For me, it was an unhealthy relationship with food. The outward appearance, right, is I'd be complimented for the accomplishments I was doing in terms of my training and all of these other things. But internally, I was really struggling with my relationship with food. At the time, my body image also. And when I had that moment, that aha moment of eating that cheesecake, it was really, it was sitting there thinking, it can't be worse than this. And it finally got to the point where I was just like, if I spend just as much effort and time trying to just like who I am right now, maybe then things will be different. Like, what's the worst that can happen? That's kind of what I just kept thinking is, I'm going to commit to, and this is what I did. I committed to 3 months of not weighing myself, not tracking my food, eating whatever I wanted to. And then also I was pretty intentional with paying attention to my thoughts too. So if I had some negative thoughts about my body, I would force myself to think of 4 positive things, like if it was just,
good for you.
If I had a bad body image day, that's how I would reframe it too. Typically it's not about our bodies, right? It's about kind of the thoughts and feelings we're having in that moment. And we tend to put it on our body. So once I had done that, I just had all these realizations throughout that process. The first was going to the grocery store for the first time, where I let myself buy whatever I wanted. And I love sweets. Sour Patch Kids.
Sour Patch, yeah.
Are my favorite.
That's the one, yeah.
And those really big bags, those like 5-pound bags you can get.
Sure.
I was like, I'm getting those. Um, and I remember being so excited to get home and eat them. And the second I opened the bag and I started eating it, I realized like, oh, like this is just food. This isn't even as exciting anymore. And it was because it wasn't labeled off limits. So the second I kind of dropped this bad food, good food, off limits, not off limits, like once I dropped this idea that we had to put food in a category, it lost its allure. And that was kind of everybody kind of coined me as the person who could put down a lot of candy. I loved candy. And now I'm someone who can keep it in my house and forget about it.
Wow.
And that to me, being who I am, knowing that that was never a possibility or even a thought that I could do that before, that's how much mindset can really make a difference in your journey. So that's become a big passion of mine for helping others, because I always just looked at it and thought, this is really hard. And it shouldn't be this hard. And it doesn't have to be. And that was one thing I learned through that process.
I like what you said about the relationship with food. You've got great social media, Allyson, and there's one particular one where you're acting out and you're talking to yourself, and you say you're going to make a sandwich for somebody, and they're like, "Oh, I can't have bread; it grosses me out," or something, and then you call them a bad word, and they get insulted. Say, "Well, I guess words don't matter." You ever consider about thinking about the way you talk about food? Yeah. It's a very important. It's comical, but it raises a very good point.
Yes, absolutely. And when we say things out loud, we reinforce a belief system, whether that belief system is healthy for us or unhealthy for us. So if I'm constantly saying I can't control myself around a certain food, or I can't keep something in the house, or every time I'm around it, I just go crazy, and then I do those behaviors, I'm just reinforcing what I'm saying, right? And it's not, sometimes you hear about like fake it till you make it, and it's not about lying to yourself and saying that if I just say things out loud, then I can do the opposite behavior. Like you really have to believe that you could do something different, which tying it back to those behavior-based goals, if you're constantly making these little changes, you're going to be reinforcing a new belief system that is more healthy. But yeah, if we're constantly saying negative things about food, or making these assumptions about who we are, then we're just reinforcing a belief system, and we're never gonna be able to change. It's too hard.
Yeah, we sure are. And food addiction, the issue is that if somebody is an alcoholic, they just don't have alcohol. The problem with food addiction is that we still have to eat. So you still have to have a relationship with food, just healthier food. And my goodness, it's the system here in the States does not make it easy for us to eat well. We have to be intentional. There's so much inexpensive, delicious tasting, bad processed food that's available everywhere. So we have to be really careful about what we do.
Yes. And I think we all know kind of we should be eating more fruits, we should be eating more vegetables. But I also know there's a lot of different information out there, confusing information. I mean, I recall when I was really struggling with my relationship with food, it was don't eat sugar. Okay, so I'll have plain Greek yogurt with berries. And that was my dessert, which was a really sad dessert, by the way. Or I wanted to have cooked vegetables, but no, don't cook them in oil. We got to steam them. So it's everything exists on a spectrum. And I think people feel like they have to be perfect when they get healthy, and also that healthy eating shouldn't taste good. And that's not the reality. It's if you enjoy cooked veggies in olive oil, then use olive oil. The only way I can eat cauliflower rice is if it's sauteed in a ton of butter. And so if I'm going to eat that, then I have it should taste good. Otherwise, long term, we're probably not going to make it, because who wants to do something they don't enjoy for the rest of their life?
Yeah, it's very, very true. And the relationship we have with food has to be intentional. So my father's from Italy, and so I would spend summers over there, and everything is, farm to table. They don't know that because that's what they assume. That's what they just
Mm-hmm.
do. Everything is kind of so close, and they don't, the breads don't have all the enriched flour and bleached flour that we have here. So it's just a different system. So here in the States, we really have to be intentional. Were you heavy as a child?
No, no. I grew up with, admittedly, I grew up with a mother who was very focused on her body
Oh, good.
and um, size, and that definitely bled into my own body image. It was never direct comments towards me.
Oh,
Um, and that's a whole other rabbit hole to go down to is
yeah.
when, and I don't have children, but I know as a parent, I've read studies where if you even talk negatively about your own body around your kids without even necessarily making comments about them, it still can impact their self-esteem because
Interesting.
it makes them look internally, right? And I think if you're looking at my social media too, I have a reel about how sometimes you'll be around friends and they'll be talking about how they feel a certain way, and it's about their body size or their weight, and you're sitting there and you're like, well, I'm bigger than you. So what does that say about me when you're talking about your body size and I'm bigger than you? So those things can impact self-esteem a
Hmm.
lot. So for me, that's kind of where a lot of this came from. And that was a realization I had, again, kind of taking a step back and looking at things objectively and not in a space of constantly wanting to try to lose weight, but where did
Hmm.
this come from?
I remember in high school, I was dating, my girlfriend at the time, and I made some comment about somebody on TV, how they were overweight or big. And then she said, yeah, but I'm bigger than her. And I said, whoa, okay, there's the lesson I've learned for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
A terrible thing to say. And, as a teenager, of course, but just, yeah, you have to learn those lessons pretty quickly. So you weren't overweight. Why did you start running marathons and half marathons? Why did you start on this journey? Was there any particular moment that you went to this exercise route, or had you always been doing that?
I've always really enjoyed exercise. I think for me, at that particular moment in my life, um, looking back now, I can say that I likely had pretty low self-esteem for a
Mm,
lot of my 20s.
mm,
And it was my mid to late 20s when I had started running. And I had a roommate at the time who was into running. And I'm forever grateful, quite frankly, for her getting me into it because
hmm,
looking back at that, it was the first time to where I had to do something that was required a lot of endurance. But
hmm,
you also, as a runner, when you're doing long distances, you have no room for negative thinking. Like you
hmm,
cannot be sitting there thinking about all of, just berating yourself. You have to be thinking positive to get through that. And I just remember thinking I was the most positive on my runs. So I think that's what really helped fuel me. And kick me off in this trajectory of eventually making changes in 2020. So
hmm.
as much as it was unhealthy in the beginning in terms of frequency, the mindset helped me later on.
So why help others? Why not keep it to yourself? Why do you help others with this?
I see I see what I've gone through in other people all of the
Hmm,
time.
hmm,
And I know how hard it is. I remember how upset I was all the time and how just constantly disappointed in
hmm,
myself. And for me, helping others is the way to kind of give back because,
hmm,
like I said, all I can think about is it doesn't have to be so hard. And I'm really passionate about making sure that others see that too. And getting out of this space where we're just solely focused on our body size and nothing else. And we have those blinders on.
yeah.
Um, because with our diet culture that exists in America, we know it's very prevalent, not just among women, but also men too. So it's very important for me to share this with others and help them get to a different space.
Hmm. I've heard you say that motivation is, some people think they have more of it and not. What is your view on motivation?
Motivation is something that one person doesn't have more than the other.
Right.
It's simply we create systems that make it easier for us, right? So it's making sure that, you know, if you want to have a new behavior, that you're reducing the other things that you don't want to do, so you have more motivation to do it. You make it easier for yourself. I think we think that the person who gets up at 5 a.m. and works out every day is just more motivated, where they likely have created a system that supports that. They might go to bed earlier. They might not sit on their phone in bed till 11 o'clock. There might just be things that they do that make it easier for them. So for motivation, it's really about finding what helps you in a system that supports long-term success. Again, not those short-term, hey, let's just rise and grind at 4 a.m. in the morning, and we're going to do this for 12 weeks, and then we're going to move on. Finding what actually you enjoy that you'll stick with.
And what is your motivation level? Do you create systems that bring it up and down, and how do you drive it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are times where I don't feel like working out. There are times I make myself work out because maybe I had a tough day and I don't want to. I prefer to work out in the morning. One thing I've learned is that if I don't get it done in the morning, then it's going to be harder in the afternoon. And I think it's also figuring out what you enjoy yourself and knowing yourself well enough. Like I just shared, I'm the longer the day goes on, the likelihood of me doing my workout is getting less and less. And I know that. And rather than forcing myself to do an evening workout and then berating myself because I didn't get it in, because I know myself well enough that I'm not going to do it. So there are systems I have in place. I like going to bed early. I like getting up early. But then on the flip side, there are people who like staying up later. So how can you work with your routine and make it fit your health goals?
Somebody comes to you, Allyson, and says, hey, look, the holidays just happened. I got to lose 20 pounds. Help me, please. I'm sure you had probably those same exact words said to you, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, when someone starts working with me, the first thing we always do is create awareness, because we need to have awareness around what are our current habits to be able to create that bridge between where we are and where we want to go. So the first thing is someone comes to me and shares that with me. It's okay, well, what are we doing right now? Right. And having them kind of reflect on their current habits, how they're eating, what they're doing. And then from there, we'll look at creating systems to help them lose that weight and also not have that happen again. That's really the goal, right? Is our weight will fluctuate. It will go up and down. But if someone doesn't want to have that happen again next holiday season, then how can we create systems now to ensure that it won't? And this also falls back again to your relationship with food, because if your whole year is spent restricting and saying no to things you really want, when the holidays come, of course you're going to go overboard, right? Yeah. Like we've spent last 10 months saying no, 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 no. And then once we're around it every day, because, the coworker brings in treats to work or whatever it is, of course we're going to say yes. So how can we also build up a system where you're not restricting throughout the year? So when the holidays come, you're in the headspace where, maybe you don't want it. Maybe you do. If you do want it, how can we make it fit in a way that continues to give you progress? So step one is always creating awareness and then building the person's system from there.
And when you're creating awareness, you tell them to, journal what they've been eating the last couple of weeks. And then they start to realize, wow, this is the reason why there's just too many calories and I'm indulging a little bit more than I thought I was. And how do you, the big issue is people can lose weight pretty quickly, but they generally gain it back right away. They find out that they can lose the weight, and then they kind of go into old habits. How do you kind of keep that permanence, discipline, thoughtfulness in their system? Very tough.
Yeah. And sometimes when we lose a lot of weight fast, it's typically because we're doing something that is so far out of our norm, or it's so restrictive that we lose weight fast. We see that, yay. And then we go back to old habits because what we were doing was never done through a lens of sustainability. It was always done through a lens of get this weight off so I can move on with my life and keep doing me. So it's looking through a lens of sustainability. A lot of times people go into a calorie deficit that's pretty great. I mean, if you're used to eating, say, 3,000 calories and you use a calculator online and it says your deficit calories should be 1,600, that's almost half the calories you're used to eating. And that's going to be really hard. So, and what's going to happen? You might be able to stick with it for a few weeks and then, you're over it because you want to go back to the way you are and then you gain it back. So how can we look through it through a lens of sustainability? Maybe it's not a 1,400 calorie deficit. Maybe it's a 200 to 300. And maybe it's not a weight loss that happens in 2 months, but it's in 6 months or 8 months. I think it's just slowing down. And what I see a lot is that what tends to sabotage people is this idea of getting their goals quickly. And if we can just slow down and do it in a way that it is done that is sustainable, right? That we can keep it off for a long time, then that's going to be most helpful.
Can one out exercise a bad diet?
You can try, but no, diet, like losing weight and fat loss is typically driven by nutrition. You might have, if you've never worked out before and you start working out, you might experience some fat loss from that simply because you're continuing to eat the way you are and you're created a deficit through exercise, but long-term success is driven by nutrition.
What if discipline wasn't about punishment, but about unlocking your best self? I spent 2.5 years writing Discipline for Greatness because discipline changed my life. And I know it can change yours too. This isn't theory. Inside, you'll find real, practical steps you can use immediately to focus better, build stronger habits, reduce stress, accomplish your goals, and bring more balance to your life. Whether you're trying to get healthier, improve your career, or simply feel more control, this book gives you the framework. Start today. Grab your copy of Discipline for Greatness at joeypinz.com/book. Thank you. I play tennis with some guys and, I'm getting this good workout in. I deserve a couple of donuts, and I said, well, generally you work out to be healthier. To lose weight, you've got to eat less. But that mindset of, well, I'm working out, so I can't eat a little bit more. I can't increase calories. Probably not the best idea.
Depending on your goals, certainly. No, if you're somebody who's looking to gain muscle, then maybe eating more is part of the game plan. But I think protein. It depends on kind of what your goal is ultimately. If it's fat loss, then no, eating back those calories isn't going to be helpful.
And what is the number one frustration that people have after working with you for a little while?
I think it's always just not seeing results fast enough.
Right.
I think we live in a world of before and afters, 30-day before and afters. We think if we, grind a little bit for a few weeks, we're going to all of a sudden have this body that we want. And I'd say it's frustration of not seeing results immediately, but also scale frustration. Right. And my programming is more strength-based programming. So certainly with strength-based programming, you might not see the feedback on the scale that you're looking for because you're strength training. And that would be the biggest frustration is just it's not fast enough and the scale isn't doing what I want it to do.
I'm working so hard, I'm hungry and I'm sore and getting on the scale and it's not showing right away. And that is there a type of person or attitude that you won't work with?
I don't think so. I mean, certainly if somebody comes to me and I have concerns that they have an eating disorder, then that's out of my scope of practice. So certainly with things like that, then they would be referred to a higher level of care, more so they can actually get the care that they need. But beyond that, not necessarily. I think I haven't run into that yet. If I had somebody come to me and they were like, I want to lose 20 pounds in a month and I won't settle for anything less, then I probably might be like, well, I'm not really going to be the coach for you then. Because certainly my way isn't extremes. It's about low and slow and sustainability. So if someone wanted to come to me for quick weight loss, I don't know if that would be like unrealistic. Quick weight loss would probably be not something I would be willing to do.
What's the difference between a coach and a therapist?
Well, I think a therapist has the ability to dive a little bit deeper. They have the training to do so. They have the tools to offer to build certain skills, whereas a coach works with you, I think, through motivational interviewing to really help kind of guide and direct you and offer, I don't want to even say offer advice, yes, but it's more about helping that person come to their own conclusions. And I think that's the difference between a coach and a therapist, where a therapist is more for really diving deeper and addressing any trauma that you may experience or any of those kind of deeper issues, whereas a coach is kind of for that right now mindset and guidance for new behaviors that you want to implement.
I've asked this question before, and I love all the answers I get. One simple one I once heard was, therapist looks back, coach looks forward.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
When one is searching for a coach, Allyson, what questions should they be asking?
I think making sure that they ask what sort of methods the coach uses, what's the coach's philosophy on coaching, and also what their history is with it. What sort of skills do they have? What type of coach have they been in the past? Do they have any testimonials? That sort of stuff would be important. Because again, it's also like a therapist for another person. It's really important that you have a coach who is somebody that you connect with and that you value. So it's important to ask questions that you will be able to find value in.
One great thing about having a coach is the accountability aspect. I'm going to be there, they're going to be there, and it's hard to do that kind of yourself. Depends on your personality, but a coach can really hold you accountable.
Absolutely. Yes. And accountability comes in different forms. I think sometimes when we hear having a coach for accountability, it's the person who's gonna be like yelling at you or telling you got to do it a certain way, or what are you doing? You're supposed to do this. And that's not what we mean when we talk about accountability. It's just having somebody there to kind of either bounce ideas off of. If you are struggling with motivation, kind of figuring out, well, what's at the core of that? What's at the root of that? So 100% accountability, but just making sure people know that accountability isn't, I'll back up a little bit. I've been a probation officer also for 14 years. Right. So when I hear accountability, that's where automatically where my brain goes to is it's always this space of negativity, because that's something I hear a lot in the criminal justice world too. So accountability can mean different things. And in the coach world, accountability is more about diving deeper and not telling you what to do, so to speak.
Where does probation officer and coach overlap? Are there any commonalities there?
Oh gosh. Honestly, the entire way we work with people in probation and how I work with people in coaching is the exact same principles. We use motivation. Yeah, it's and now every state's different. I live in the state of Minnesota, so we use motivational interviewing. There are cognitive behavioral interventions that we use, and these same exact things I use in my coaching practice, because they're and when I've gone through all my education for coaching, they are the same tools. Wow. It's pretty fascinating because when we look at probation, what we're really trying to help people is coach them into changes where they're not in the criminal justice system anymore. And so it's the same with health. We're just trying to coach people up into making better decisions for their health. I will admit, my nutrition business people would like to see me there more than the other side of things. But they're very, very similar at the end of the day. It's just it's behavior change at its core.
How is technology helping coaching?
I think it offers an ability to expand in different ways. For example, if you have the person who maybe has a home gym and doesn't really know what to do, technology offers the ability for me to provide guided plans with written instructions that somebody can watch, or video instructions. It gives me the ability to feel like I'm there with that person, even though I'm not. So I think about situations where maybe there's some gym anxiety and somebody doesn't want to go to the gym, or maybe they have limitations where they prefer to stay in their home. I think it's just expanded access for anybody who wants to have a coach.
Does artificial intelligence play any role in helping, hurting what you do?
I don't think so. I haven't really dived into it too much in my coaching practice, because certainly when someone signs up for coaching, they want a person, right? They want a real person.
Yeah.
So there haven't been times in my coaching practice where I've necessarily used it. So at this time, I guess I don't know. To be continued.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Continued. Allyson, is there something 10 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago, that you believed in solidly, that you don't believe in any longer?
I used to believe that women had to eat very little. I remember having a friend of mine comment about somebody she had been working with years ago. And she was like, yeah, they told me to start eating at 2,000 calories. And the first thought in my head was, oh my gosh, that is too much. Like, what? And I look back on that and I think, wow, was I wrong? We as women tend to significantly undereat, and then we're strength training on top of it, and we're not seeing any results, but we're not giving our body the fuel it needs to build muscle, and it's just kind of this constant cycle. So for me, it's definitely that women should be eating less was something I believed, and that's very much not what I believe anymore.
And you believe that? Why did you believe they had to eat less?
I think it was based on my own experience. I think based on diet culture, when we look at kind of what we have around us all the time, it's eat less, eat less, eat less. That's constantly the messaging. If you want the body you want, you got to eat less. So I think it was a combination of external factors and then also my own internal voice, because certainly eating less helped me lose weight. But then I was stuck there. And that was another thing I also believe too. I remember eating at one point just 1,200 calories, which I was starving. Yeah. Do not recommend. And I recall thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I have to do this forever. And not understanding the idea of you go into a calorie deficit and you have to go back out. Like you get out of it. You don't live there forever. And that's something I used to believe, is once you started eating a certain way and you achieved the weight loss that you wanted to achieve, that's what you needed to do forever. And that's not true. The habits, yes. Quantity, no.
Where do you stand with intermittent fasting?
I don't really have a strong stance either way. I think ultimately it's a calorie deficit that does help people. So if it's a system that somebody likes that they want to implement, then that's great. But if it's something that an individual wants to do because they feel like it's going to achieve whatever their goal is quicker, then there might be some questions of diving deeper on that. Because again, I think we all do intermittent fasting. We all sleep. Yes, so right. What kind of intermittent fasting does this person want to do? I think there are just a lot of follow-up questions. I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. To me, it's always kind of what's the motivation behind the decision for the behavior.
Yeah, of course, when we sleep at night, we're fasting. That's why breakfast is breaking the fast. It's called that. And is there a question, Allyson, that you wish more people asked you?
That is a great question. I don't know. Like I sometimes I think like about, a lot of times I get asked about physical changes. And I think sometimes people also need to ask about what sort of mindset changes can happen. How can you help address either all or nothing thinking or just thinking patterns that are kind of keeping me stuck? But admittedly, sometimes that's things that folks don't even know they're experiencing. And that's where a coach can kind of help help them, show them kind of what their thoughts are and how they're impacting their ultimately their behaviors. So I don't know if I have a specific question, but it would be nice to get asked more kind of about how does someone's mindset really truly impact their behavior.
It's a big issue because I hear it all the time. I can't have cookies in the house. I'm just, or, my butt is too big, or, just the negative talk that you hear, or, I can't,
Absolutely.
why do you talk to yourself like that? I mean, and the whole mindset, by the way, of like, the things, the eating habits, exercise habits I had in the 20s is very different when I'm in my 30s. It's just as you get older, things change. I'm in my 50s now, my late 50s, and it obviously is different from the last couple of years. But that's another factor, that your metabolism slows down, and you just can't do some of the things you can do there. And people have to kind of face that realization as well.
Yes. Well, and that can be hard, but we need to become adaptable. And again, I keep going back to building a system, but ultimately that is what it's about. It's not about rigidity and creating something that you never can live in the gray with. We have to learn to live in the gray, because that's where when you experience either maybe a new season of life where you realize there are some things you can't do, or maybe you get injured for some reason. That's when you're able to adapt easier. But if we're living in a black and white world where we've created a system that if I go out of it, I'm done. We're setting ourselves up to fail. So it's learning to kind of live in the gray area and understand that life has seasons, and some seasons we might be able to do more, and some seasons we might not be able to do as much.
Your approach, Allyson, to problem solving, to just how you approach decisions, I get the feeling from talking to you, learning about you, that it's a little bit more science than art. Do you ever, when making a decision, you get some facts together, do you ever kind of rely on your gut to make the final decision?
Yes and no. I feel like I collect kind of everything. And I feel like through working with people in probation for as long as I've learned what my conclusion is and what someone else's conclusion of a problem is and a solution are likely two different things. So typically working with people, it's helping them come to their own conclusion. So yes, I typically look at everything, but I also know that when working with another person, I cannot solve a problem for them necessarily. They kind of have to come to the conclusion on their own. Otherwise I'm just giving advice, and we all love advice, right? So I learned that a long time ago, that doesn't change behavior.
It doesn't. This is purely anecdotal. I wonder what your feedback on this is. I have found that many of my friends, colleagues, they get stuck in one or many of these three ways I have found. And again, I've done no research. I haven't heard this list anywhere. One being the whole trying to control what they can't control, right? When they obsess on trying to control things they just have no control over. Two is the whole I'll be holding off on happiness. I'll be happy when I lose the weight, when I get that promotion, or if this person treats me well, kind of conditionally holding off on it when certainly they have complete control themselves. And lastly is the whole this happened to me in the past. That's that's where I am now. Because that happened to me in the past, kind of living in the past, that's where I am. Or this is going to happen in the future and I have to do everything and I'm worried about it there. So those three ways I have found people get stuck. You must see some of this in your work in both disciplines.
Yeah, absolutely. When somebody feels like I'll be happy when, I think that's a great example of coaching. in nutrition and fitness. And I always, you just have to challenge those beliefs a little bit, because when has that ever happened? And this idea of I'll be happy when, and this was a thought I had a lot when I was kind of in that really bad space of over restriction and over exercising, that if we're constantly treating ourselves a certain way over and over and over and over again, we'll never even have the perception. Even if we reached our goals, we'll never see ourselves having reached our goals, because we're going to either move the goalpost over and over and over again, or when we get there, we're looking through the lens of negative thinking. And this is what always fascinates me with body image too, is if you continuously say negative things about your body, your eyes are going to see something different in the mirror. It's the same reason why if you say something to your friend about, it could be your looks, it could be whatever, in a picture or something, they're like, oh my God, you look great. What are you talking about? It's because they think about you in a different way than you think about you. And so they see you differently. So this idea of I'll be happy when is when, I think just continuously challenging that. And what can we do right now that would at least bring some joy, even though you haven't reached your goal yet? And kind of looking in the past too. And those are those narratives that we always tell ourselves and that have shaped our beliefs. And this is big in probation also, is when we have gone through something in our life and we believe it to be true, like I don't deserve good things. That could be somebody's belief system. We're going to constantly look for evidence in the real world to reinforce that. So if we think X happened to me 10 years ago and therefore nothing good is going to happen to me, we're going to look at the only thing we're going to see when we walk through the world are all the bad things happening to us, So yeah, that's very interesting. And that gets me, I could get a little nerdy with that sometimes. I think it's fascinating, this idea of how our beliefs shape what we see, but it matters. And it matters when we want to reach our goal too, because there's a lot of times that I hear people talking about like, well, I'll do this when I lose the weight. And that was something I definitely learned through my own journey, is that confidence doesn't come through weight loss. It comes through what you do. And that makes a big difference.
Yeah, it sure does. And it's very easy to say a lot of these things for us, but it can be difficult for others, but you're really in control of your own happiness, damn it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you are
absolutely.
in control of it. You are in control of it. I have friends that have incredible road rage for whatever reason. There's nothing you could. I just, why are you wasting all this? For me, it's silly and we laugh. It's simple, but it's like for them, they lived in Northern California and they had to commute, 90 minutes a day, and this is, for 20 years. So this is their reaction. Okay, I don't have that experience, so I don't, I can't understand it. But it's just you can't. There's nothing you could do. It just seems so simple about it. So I started my business, Allyson, back in the 90s. I was working way too hard and I was developing a lot of these bad habits. Always been an athlete my whole life, and putting health in the back seat, working 14, 16-hour days. Started eating a lot of pizza at night, drinking too much soda, and I felt myself getting heavier. But I get in front of the doctor. She tells me I'm at 340 pounds. So I had gained all this terrible, terrible weight. And she said something next that, rocked my world. And it's like, if you don't lose this weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. So it scared the life out of me. I'm driving home, not motivated. I was pissed off, right? I was angry, punching the steering wheel. This is my pie hole. I could do whatever I want to myself, but it's much bigger than me now, right? I've got this family, this beautiful daughter. So I spent the next 6-7 months, lost about 130 pounds. And again, we talked about it earlier. You can't look at these things like finishing lines, right? You got to make lifelong changes. So when people ask me, of course, how'd you do it? What's your secret? There's no secret. I always say discipline. And we've alluded to it in this conversation. Motivation, focus, routine, these kinds of things I consider all under the discipline spectrum. How does discipline play a role in your life, Allyson Hurley?
I always, discipline to me, I have a love-hate relationship with that word a little bit
Good.
too. Because discipline to me feels negative and feels rigid, like, oh, I'm disciplined and you don't have discipline and that's why you're not reaching your goals. That's where I tend to hear that language. But again, I think motivation and discipline are kind of similar in the way where if you find something that you enjoy, it doesn't feel like discipline necessarily. It doesn't feel like being rigid or needing this external motivation. Just like you shared, that was that was intrinsic motivation that you had. That was about your daughter. That wasn't about you anymore. You had a deeper drive to make that change, and that's also really important when we want to make any sort of health changes. Is what's the deeper motivation? Because a lot of times you see people who's like, well, I just want to lose weight. Well, but why? Like, what do you think weight loss is going to give you? And now all of a sudden you find out, well, I'm really worried that I'm not going to be able to be there for my grandkids, or I'm really worried about X, Y, and Z. Okay, that's the motivation that we need to use to build discipline. And even when you talk about having lost the weight too, and it's a long-term game, making sure that people are just finding a way to make little changes that add up over time. You made me think of something. I had experienced some weight loss maybe 2 years ago, and a coworker of mine, because going back a little bit, when I had said I wasn't weighing myself for 3 months, like, of course I gained weight. But it didn't bother me as much. And then naturally my body weight had gone down because I wasn't, I healed my relationship with food. And I remember a coworker of mine commenting on it, like, oh, have you lost weight? Blah, blah, blah. How'd you do it? And I didn't know what to say, because all I could say was, I just ate a little bit less. Like, there was no magic, like, oh, I did keto or I did this extreme diet. It was just simply like I had smaller portions. So when I think about discipline, it just it makes me laugh a little bit, because I'm like, I don't know if maybe the discipline comes from having a healthy relationship with food and is not as hardcore as the word maybe sometimes has meaning.
You mentioned the relationship with your mother, where there was a body image issue there. Was discipline talked about in childhood, or was it kind of exemplified?
It was talked about without the language of discipline, right? Like, I just remember my mom having food rules a lot. And at the time, I thought that that's how you had to. So I think about, like, I only have one piece of bread a day. That was a food rule. That's not something I do, but
How old were you when this was instilled?
I mean, this is my whole life. This is still my life, and if I can be frank, it's also something I look at and I'm like, I don't want to be older and still be struggling with the way I look and feel about my body. Like, that just feels like a life that's been shrunk unnecessarily. And I don't want that. So I think there's still some of this going on. And that shaped me immensely. One poorly in the beginning, but then it also gave me an opportunity to kind of see a way that wasn't great to live. So yeah.
What motivates you, Allyson?
I think the biggest motivation in general is just, I don't know, being better, getting better every day, being better to show up for my clients, practicing what I preach. I would say that's a big value that I have, is making sure that I'm doing what I'm encouraging my clients to do, and making sure that I'm showing up in the healthiest way that I can. If I give myself grace for missing something, it's the same, instilling that same thing into the way I coach also. So I think it's just, my biggest motivation is continuing to show up the way I present myself showing up. Being integrity and being genuine are very important to me.
Self-improvement, genuinity, impact. This is what I hear. So given those motivators, how do you measure success?
I laugh just because I'm like, this is probably a probation thing for me too. Because as you can imagine, success in probation sometimes isn't there all the time. And so you have to look at those little moments of success. So it could be the person is opening up to me more, or they're expressing excitement over gains in muscle or whatever it is. So when I think about like how I value and see success, it's those moments where a client expresses either gratitude or they have just they've done something differently and it's worked for them. A lot of times with the women that I've worked with, it's addressing again their mindset to see things differently. It's being able to go to a holiday meal and feel good when they leave because they didn't overeat, but they also didn't restrict. So there are a lot of those little things are where I find the biggest impact and joy and success. That's where I see success.
Want to show your love for discipline, inspiration, and the Joey Pinz podcast? Now's your chance. Introducing the brand new Joey Pinz merch store, where style meets discipline. Choose from premium apparel, cozy hoodies, stylish hats, durable bags, and your new favorite coffee mug, all featuring the iconic Joey Pinz logo. Perfect for podcast fans, discipline enthusiasts, or as unique gifts for friends and family. Every purchase supports the Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations podcast, helping us continue to inspire greatness and promote positive change. Visit joeypinz.com/store today and wear your discipline proudly. Joey Pinz merch. Wear it, share it, and live it. Allyson, has there been something in the last month or so you changed your mind on?
I had been tracking calories for a while and I just quit doing that. So I changed my mind on that. Not that I don't think there's great awareness it can create, but knowing myself well enough and the tendencies that I have to do it in an unhealthy way, and seeing that it was starting to get there, I decided to stop again. And that kind of goes back to living my values and making sure that, when I talk to my coaching clients about eventually off-ramping with tracking, if I'm talking to them about that, I need to do the same thing. If I'm seeing kind of a mindset impact or something that no longer is really serving me in the way it should be. So that was something, I don't want to say I changed my mind on it and I think it's bad or anything like that, this black and white label with it. Absolutely not. Just for me, it wasn't a good, in this moment, it wasn't good for me. So I decided not to do it anymore.
Allyson, great pleasure talking to you. I was excited when we set this up, and anybody wants to get in touch with you, how can they do so?
Yeah, they can visit my website. It's AllysonCoaches.com. I have a free macro planner that people can download right now that gives a bunch of resources. If you're not interested in tracking, there are different ways to kind of just help you build some awareness. And also, you can find me on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram at Allyson Coaches.
Allyson Coaches, plural, and very, very cool. I really appreciate your time. Next time I'm in the greater Minnesota area, maybe we'll get a cup of tea.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Allyson, thank you so much. You be well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypinz.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.